A house is not ruined by the storm outside, but by the hunger growing within that, is what the elders of Enugu say. And if Adaeze Obi had heard those words, truly heard them, perhaps her story would have ended differently. But she did not listen, not to the elders, not to her husband, not even to her own daughter. She only started listening when she had nothing left to lose. Picture this. A woman standing alone outside a glass office building in Lagos holding a cardboard box filled with the contents of her desk, a framed photo, a small cactus, plant, a nameplate that once read Adeye's Obi Director of Marketing. The afternoon sun beats down on her without mercy. Her phone is ringing. She looks at the screen. It is Chisom, her daughter. She stares at the name for a long moment. Then she presses decline. She cannot speak to Chisom right now. She does not know how to explain that the woman Chisom once admired, the powerful, untouchable Adaeze Obi, no longer exists. This is where our story ends, but to understand how she got here, we have to go back to where it all began. Let me tell you about a daisy in the city of Enugu, in a quiet neighborhood. Where the streets smelled of red earth and roasting corn, there lived a young woman of extraordinary ambition. Adaeze Mosu was the daughter of a school teacher and a seamstress. They were not wealthy, but they were dignified people. Her mother ironed her school uniform every morning without fail. Her father checked her homework by the light of a kerosene lamp. They raised her to believe that a woman who worked hard enough could build anything she desired, and Ada believed them completely. She was brilliant in school. She read everything she could find. She studied marketing at the University of Nigeria. Nsukka and graduated at the top of her department. She was 24 years old when she got her first job at a mid-sized advertising firm in Enugu. She was 26 when she met Emeka Obi. Emeka was not what people would call an ambitious man, but he was something rarer. He was a good man. He ran a small tailoring shop on Ogi Road, and his work was exquisite. People came from across the state to have him sew their aso-ebi for weddings and their agbada for chieftaincy ceremonies. He was not rich, but he was deeply skilled, deeply kind, and he loved our days in a way that was quiet and steady, like a river that does not rush, but never runs dry. They married when Ades was 28. The wedding was modest. Plastic chairs borrowed from a church hall, a canopy that shook in the evening breeze, jollof rice cooked by her aunties in large iron pots. It was not the wedding Adaeze had imagined as a girl, but she told herself it did not matter. What mattered was what she would build. 1 year after the wedding, their daughter Chisom was born, a bright-eyed child who laughed easily and asked questions about everything. Adaeze loved her fiercely. But even as she held her newborn daughter in the hospital bed, a part of her mind was already calculating how quickly she could return to work 3 months after Chisom was born. Adaeze received a call from a recruiter in Lagos. A large consumer goods company was looking for a marketing manager. The salary was nearly 3 times what she earned in Enugu. Adaeze did not hesitate for long. Emeka, she said that evening, while he was hemming a kaftan at his work table, "I want to take the job in Lagos." Emeka looked up Lagos. "But Chisom is only 3 months old." "I know, but this is a real opportunity. In the kind that does not come twice. We can manage. You are here. Your mother is close by. Chisom will be fine." Emeka was quiet for a long moment. His needle paused mid-stitch. "And what about us, Adaeze? What about our home? Our home will be better," she said firmly. "When I am earning that kind of money, everything will be better. Just give me time." America looked at his wife. He saw the fire in her eyes. He had always loved that fire. He nodded slowly. "Okay, but promise me you will not forget that home is here with us." "I promise," she said. She meant it when she said it. She truly did. Lagos swallowed Adaeze whole, and she loved every minute of it. The city was loud and ruthless, and alive in a way that Enugu never quite was. And she threw herself into her work. With everything she had, she arrived at the office before anyone else and left. After the cleaners had gone, she studied competitors, rewrote campaign strategies, stayed on phone calls until midnight. Within 2 years, she was promoted to senior marketing manager. Within 4, she was director. She sent money home every month without fail. Emeka used it to pay Chi some school fees to expand his tailoring shop a little, to fix the leaking roof of their house. Adaeze told herself this was love. This was how she showed her family. She cared with money, with provision, with results. What she did not notice was quietly eroding beneath the surface. She came home to Enugu twice a year, Christmas and Easter each time. She arrived with bags of gifts and an air of Legos about her new shoes, a sharper accent, a restlessness that made Emeka's quiet house feel smaller than she remembered. She would sit at the dining table and look around at the modest furniture, the simple walls, the tailoring mannequins in the corner of the sitting room, and something unnamed would tighten in her chest. She was doing better. She was earning more, and slowly, without meaning to, she began to feel that she had outgrown this life. She began to say small things, at first said lightly, almost as jokes. Emeka, have you thought about expanding the business, moving to a commercial space? Or Chisom School is fine, but there is a better one on the other side of town. I can pay. Or do we really need to go to your mother's? For the whole of Christmas, I only have a week. Emeka would respond with patience, but his eyes told a different story. There was something in them, a sadness, a careful measuring that Adaeze chose not to examine too closely. Chisom was 7 years old when she said something that should have stopped Adaeze completely. They were sitting on the veranda one Easter evening, watching the sun lower itself behind the mango trees. Chisom was leaning against her mother's side. Unusually quiet, Mama. Chisom said, when I grow up, I do not want to be like you. Ada is a Stefan. What do you mean? I want to stay home. I want to be like Daddy. He is always here. Adaeze laughed it off. You are just a child. You do not understand. Yet when you grow up, you will want to be successful. You will want your own money, your own power. Chisom said nothing more, but she moved slightly away from her mother's side and did not lean in again. Adaeze returned to Lagos and threw herself back into work. By the time Chisom was 11, the calls between Adaeze and Emeka had grown shorter. There was less to say, or perhaps too much to say and no comfortable way to say it. Emeka had expanded his tailoring shop. He had taken on 2 apprentices. He was teaching sewing skills at a vocational center. On Saturday mornings, he was respected in the neighborhood. People spoke of him with warmth, but he earned a fraction of what Adaeze earned. And somehow, over the years, that fraction had become the measure of everything between them. One December visit, Adaeze came home to find that Emeka had repainted the sitting room sky blue. She stood in the doorway with her suitcase and stared at it. I liked the old color, she said. You were not here when I repainted it, he replied quietly. The words landed like a stone in still water. Neither of them said anything more about it. That was the Christmas Adaeze began to stay at a hotel when she visited, just for convenience. She told herself she needed reliable Wi-Fi. She had conference calls early in the morning, and it was simply more practical. But Chisom noticed everything. It was Adaeze's friend Ngozi who first said the thing. No one else was willing to say. Ngozi worked in finance, lived in Victoria Island, and had known Adaeze since their university days. She was sharp-tongued and loyal in equal measure. The kind of friend who would not let you walk into a fire without at least warning you. First, they were having lunch at a restaurant in Lekki. When Ngozi put down her fork and looked at Adaeze with the expression of someone who had been holding something in for far too long, Adaeze, I need to say something and I need you not to get angry. When has that instruction ever worked on me this time? Please try. Ngozi folded her hands on the table. You are losing your family and you are so busy winning at work that you cannot see it. Adaeze set down her glass. Ngozi, I am not finished. Emeka calls you and you are in a meeting. Chisom sends you drawings she makes in school and you respond. 3 days later, you have not been to a single school event for that child. In 4 years, Adaeze, I provide for them. Everything they have, Ngozi said firmly, is not the same as everything they need. A child does not grow up and say, thank you, Mama, for the school fees. She grows up and says, Mama was not there. Those are the 2 different things you keep confusing. Adaeze felt anger flare in her chest. So, what are you saying? I should have stayed in Enugu and remained small, remained ordinary. I am saying, Ngozi said quietly, that ordinary and present is worth more than extraordinary and absent. And I say this as your friend Adaeze paid for lunch and changed the subject. But Ngozi's words followed her home, followed her to the office, sat with her in the back of the car. During her evening commute, she pushed them down, buried them under deadlines and strategy documents and quarterly targets. She did not call Emeka that night. She did not call for several nights after. When Chisom turned 14, Emeka called Adaeze with a voice so measured and deliberate that she knew immediately the call was not ordinary. I think we need to talk, he said. Not over the phone. Come home. She came home the following weekend. She walked into the house and found it clean and quiet. Chisom was at a friend's place, and Maka was sitting in the sky blue sitting room with 2 cups of tea already poured. He did not shout, and Maka was not a man who shouted. He spoke in the slow, careful way of someone who has rehearsed a painful thing many times. I have been thinking for a long time, he said, and I want you to understand that I am not angry. I am just honest. We have not been husband and wife for a very long time. We have been 2 people sharing a child's school fees and a house we barely both live in. I do not think this is fair to either of us, and I do not think it is fair to Chisom. Ada is stirred at her tea. America, I can change. You said that 3 years ago and 2 years before that. I believe you mean it every time you say it. But meaning it and doing it are different things. And I have run out of time to wait and see which one will finally happen. So what are you saying? He looked at her steadily. I am saying we should separate formally, quietly, with respect. Chisom will stay with me because this is her home and her school is here. You can visit whenever you choose. But I cannot keep pretending that this marriage is alive when both of us know it has been silent for years. Adaeze opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Chisom will blame me. Chisom is a perceptive child. Emeka said she has already drawn her own conclusions. She is just waiting for the adults to be honest. Adahi drove back to Lagos. The next morning, she sat in her apartment, the beautiful silent apartment, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and its view of the lagoon. And she felt for the first time the full weight of what she had built. She had a career that was the envy of her industry. She had a salary that made other women's eyes widen. She had shoes she had never worn twice, and a car she drove alone every day to an office where people called her director and deferred to her judgment on everything. And she had a daughter who had stopped calling her. First, she told herself she would be fine. She threw herself even deeper into work. If such a thing were possible, she took on bigger campaigns. Longer hours, more clients. She told herself this was strength, this was resilience. Then came the afternoon that opened this story. The new managing director arrived from the company's parent firm in Johannesburg. A full restructuring was announced. Senior leadership positions were being consolidated. Adaeze was called into a glass-walled office and handed a letter. On her position was being eliminated. She was being offered a severance package. They thanked her for her years of exceptional service. She walked out of the building, holding a cardboard box. The afternoon sun offered her no sympathy. Her phone rang Chisom. She declined the call. She sat in her car for a very long time. It was Ngozi who came. Adaeze had not called her. She had not called anyone, but Ngozi showed up at her apartment that evening with a flask of pepper soup and the blunt, steady presence of someone who understood that sometimes a person does not need advice. They need someone to sit with them in the difficult room. Say it, Adaeze said, eventually staring at the lagoon through her window. Say what? Say that you warned me. Say I told you. So Ngozi was quiet for a moment. No good friend says that when someone is already hurting, she poured the pepper soup into a bowl and set it in front of Adaeze. But I will say this. You are 51 years old. You are brilliant and experienced and far from finished. This is not the end of anything. It is just the end of the version of yourself that needed an office title to feel worthy. Ada, is it turned to look at her? Chisom called me today. I did not answer. I no call her back. I do not know what to say to her. You do not need to have the perfect words. You just need to begin that night. Long after Ngozi had gone, Adaeze sat with her phone in her hand for nearly an hour. Then she dialed her daughter's number. Chisom answered on the third ring. Mama Edezi's throat tightened. Chisom, I am sorry I missed your call earlier. A brief silence is everything. Okay, no, Adaeze said, and the honesty of it surprised even her. No, my daughter, everything is not okay, but I would like to talk to you. If you are willing another silence longer this time, then quietly, okay, Mama, I am listening. That one conversation did not fix 14 years of distance. Nothing that simple could, but it opened a door that had been shut for so long that both of them had almost forgotten it was there in the weeks that followed. Adaeze made changes that would have seemed impossible to the woman she had been. Even 6 months earlier, she did not chase another director position. Immediately, she took consulting work in smaller projects, things that let her manage her own time. She began driving to Enugu on weekends. Not staying at a hotel, but at her mother's old house, close enough for Chisom to come by if she chose to. Chisom came by cautiously, at first stiffly, with the careful politeness of a teenager who has learned not to expect too much from a parent, but Daisy showed up every weekend without fail. She did not make grand speeches. She did not arrive with expensive gifts. She arrived with herself, which was the one thing she had never reliably brought before. Emeka remained cordial. They had reached the kind of peace that is possible between two people who have stopped blaming each other and simply accepted what he was rebuilding too. In his own way, his tailoring center had grown into a full skills training program for young women in the neighborhood. He had been quietly building something remarkable while Adaeze was building her career, and she was only now beginning to see it clearly. One evening, sitting on the veranda of her mother's house, Chisom asked her something. Mama, do you regret going to Lagos? Adaeze considered the question seriously. I regret how I went. I regret making the work mean more than you and your father. But I do not regret working. I do not regret being ambitious. Those things are part of who I am. She looked at her daughter. What I know now is that ambition without roots will take you far, but leave you with nowhere to land. Chisom was quiet, thinking Ngozi. Auntie says, you are one of the most capable women she has ever known. Ngozi is too kind. She also says you were a fool. Adaeze laughed. A real laugh startled out of her. Ngozi is also very honest. Chisom smiled. It was the first real smile she had given her mother in years. Small and cautious, but present, and Adaeze held it carefully. In the way you hold something you have found after losing it, understanding now exactly what it is worth. There is a question worth sitting with. After hearing Ada's story, she did not abandon her family for another man. She did not live in cruelty. She left in ambition with love. She expressed as money with pride. She expressed as provision. And yet the effect on her daughter was the same. A child who grew up counting the days between visits, learning to need her mother a little less each year as a form of self-protection. So the question is this: when we choose our ambitions over our presence, are we building for our families or building away from them? And at what point does providing for the people we love become a way of avoiding the harder sessy, quieter work of simply being with them? There is no easy answer. Adaeze would be the first to tell you that she is still working on it every weekend, every phone call, every ordinary evening on that veranda, watching the sun fall behind the mango trees, her daughter beside her close enough to reach the IBO, say Onye Wetara, Oji Wetara, Indu. The one who brings kola nut, it brings life. But life is not only brought in grand gestures. Sometimes it is brought in the simple daily act of showing up. It is not too late to show up. It is almost never too late. But do not wait until you are standing outside a glass building with a cardboard box to find that out.